In today's video, I'm showing you how to connect Clay to Zapier, and specifically I'm going to cover two things. The first thing is how to get data from Clay into Zapier, and then secondly I'm going to cover also how to get data from Zapier into Clay. So to start with, let's imagine for a second that you're inside of your Clay account. It looks something like this. You have a Clay table, you ran a bunch of enrichments, and you now want to send that data across into Zapier. All you need to do is click on Actions in the top right-hand corner, type in HTTP API, which is only available on the $349 a month plan or above. Click into HTTP API, click on Config, and just scroll down to where it says Endpoint. And for the time being, just make the method post. And don't ask me why. Post is basically just the idea of you sending data from one platform to another. And all we need to do is now generate an endpoint. In other words, like a URL that we can copy and paste here, which we can get from your Zapier account. For the purpose of this, just head over into Zapier, and over here it will give you a bunch of different options. So in the Copilot, just ask it to create a catch webhook and nothing else. And then just basically click send. And straight away, this Copilot will understand what to do, and then it will guide you into the editor. So then you can click on continue with editor. And in this case, really quickly, you'll just pop up and hallucinate in the background for a couple of seconds before then creating this entire flow for you. So for the time being, you can see on the left-hand side that it's thinking and it's setting up this app. And you can see just within a couple of seconds, right in front, basically created this first step. I could have found it myself. It's super simple. It's called Webhooks by Zapier. You can see it's a premium feature, so it's not available probably on the free plan, but assuming that you have a free trial, it should be available. At that point, you can just click on continue, and you can ignore this pick off a child key. You can ignore that. Click on continue again, and it will give you a URL over here. So all you would need to do is copy and paste this webhook URL by just clicking on copy, go back into the Clay table, into the HTTP API, make sure it's a post request, make sure there is an endpoint. And more than that, all you would need to do after that is just copy and paste the JSON. And if you're not sure what JSON is or anything of that sort, you can just go into ChatGPT, and I'll show you how to go about this, and just say something like, I want to transfer 5 columns in JSON from Clay into Zapier. Turn these column headers into JSON format. And then you could just input what the column headers are over here. For example, like full name, first name, and so on. So for the time being, I'll just make sure I'm not wasting our time and just select first name and LinkedIn profile. Click on enter. Within just a couple of seconds, it will then give you a cleaned up JSON format. So you can just click on copy code, head back into your account over here and make sure that it's under body. All you would need to do is in the quotation marks on the right hand side, just map the fields by using the backslash, and then you can map the first name and the LinkedIn profile of the person in this case. Make sure that these fields are switched off. Actually, it's giving you an error for some reason over here, so maybe keep them switched on for the time being, ignore my advice. And then all we're going to do next is click on test trigger inside of our Zap, and click on save and run 10 rows inside of our Clay table. As soon as we click on that, status code 200 will say that it's been successful. So in other words, whenever you see status code 200, that means that this ran successfully. And then if we now click on test trigger, we should be able to see all of the records that came in. If we click on any of the records, we can see the first name and the LinkedIn profile that came through. And it's up to you what you do from that point onwards, because I'm not a Zapier expert. I'm not going to be, training you on how to use Zapier to its potential here. However, it's just worth knowing that this is how you transfer data from Clay into Zapier. Now, this begs the question, how do you actually go about transferring data from Zapier into Clay directly? So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to set up a really quick flow. So let's imagine that the trigger is a Google Form submission of someone joining the waitlist for my automations course, which teaches you how to master NA10 in under 5 hours. And in this case, I'm just going to select the trigger to be a new form response. And then I'm just going to click on continue. And for the purpose of this, I'm just going to select this specific form, which is unlock automations waitlist, right? And this is just the trigger. And for the action, in order for us to be able to know how to transfer data into Clay, all we need to do is just type in Clay, select Clay will be the top option over here. Select the action that you want to take. You could either create a record in the table, you can find the row, you can find the user, and you could do some of the other stuff. But in this case, typically you would either update a record if you already have a row existing inside of Clay for that person or company or job or whatever. or you just create records. So in this case, I'm going to create record in table. And then for the purpose of this, you'll need to select your account. So I'm going to select my Clay account, and then I'm going to click on continue. And then I'll need to select my workspace ID. You can see a bunch of different IDs over here that I've got to choose from. And I can also select my exact table. So for the purpose of this, I'm going to select my Zapier table. And then you could even go as crazy as selecting the view, because of course inside of Clay tables you have views in the top left-hand corner, but I'm not going to get carried away here. And the final thing that you need to do is just map the fields. So for the purpose of this form, all we have is just the first name and the email address of a person. So let me just type those in just to test this out. And then just type in test. And then basically all you would need to do is just map the fields. Right now, we don't have any data to play around with. So let me just quickly go to step 1 and test the trigger. In that case, I'm going to submit the form. And voila, we've got some test data. They arrived. And then now we can just basically go down here and map some of that test data over here. So for instance, I can just map like the email address, right, as an example. So let's say we just want to transfer the email address on its own. Continue, test step, and then this should send the data straight into Clay. So we should have just received just the email address in this table, and there it is at the bottom over here. So simply put, if you're just wondering in literally like under 5 seconds how you can go about moving data from Zapier to Clay, it's as simple as you just typing in Clay in the actions over here. So if I type in Clay, it'll be the top option, and then all you would need to do is just click on the event that you want to take place. In this case, create a record, continue, select your workspace, and then towards the very end, all you would need to do is just map the fields that you want transferred. And it's as simple as that. Oh, and by the way, if you're the kind of person that had to Google how to connect Clay to Zapier, the chances are you see the value of tools like Clay and Zapier in the first place, and chances are you like to challenge yourself with trying out new fancy AI and automation tools. If that's the case, you've probably already heard of this funky tool called N8N that enables you to automate all sorts of processes. It also enables you to build AI workflows and AI agents. And if you're at all curious about the basics of N8N and how to go from a complete newbie and a complete beginner all the way through to an intermediate user of N8N, I've put together a free training resource teaching you how you can go about upskilling yourself inside of N8N. And it literally requires zero knowledge to get started with watching those tutorials, which will be the top link in the description down below. So go check it out, and I'll see you in the next video.